Right, are we back? We back? Are we back yet? Right, are we back? Did I save it? We're back, perfect, there we are, awesome. Right, I don't know what you guys missed and what you guys didn't. I accidentally pressed stop streaming on my stream deck because I'm still getting used to the thing. That was entirely my fault. What was the last thing you guys heard? And we'll get back to it. We'll get back to where I was meant to be. Craig Durant, hello, bud. How you doing? Hope you're having a good day. Personally, I did not hear anything. Okay, I'll start from the beginning. So, plans for this stream today is mostly just to get this bottom plate here swapped back out. When we were driving back from Smurf, it unfortunately didn't survive, and what ended up happening was, I can show you a little closer, this nut just here, right, for the ball screw has fallen through because the internals of this have cracked. So what I did is I went back to I went back to the CAD for the same part, and I made it a little thicker in that spot, so it should be fine. But the idea is today we're going to swap that out. I've also got a new hardened steel hot end to put on one of my Bamboo Labs machines, as well as the hardened steel gears to put on them, because we're going to be printing some abrasive filament very soon. We're going to be doing that for V1.6. So the plan I have for V1.6, we're going to get started with some of the printing. Some of the parts are already printing over on my second P1S. Wrong camera. My second P1S over there. So the Trident is at the back there. That was originally going to be my machine for abrasives, but it didn't last very long. It did a couple parts. My second one is my multicolor P1S, and then this one's going to be the one that we upgrade today to have the hardened nozzle. The reason I'm doing it on this one and not the one with the AMS is because the P1S has an issue with abrasive filaments abrading away the PTFE tubes that are in the AMS, so we're not going to put it install it on that one. We're just going to do it the one that doesn't have it. Perfect. And yeah, we can also talk about the actual plans for P1S. Sorry, not P1S, for V1.6. Hey Nomad, is everything upside down? I don't know. Things might be going sideways a little bit soon. Sooner rather than later, eh Nomad? Oh, and a big congratulations to Nomad is due, in fact, because if you have a look at the design team members on the Discord now, you might be surprised. Right, come on, Brisket, out the way. Ugh. In your bed. I don't know. Please tell me what is upwards. I don't know. My second silo arrived today. This is going to be the one I use for Atlas. So it's going to be a while until I actually end up using it. Brisket, you're not meant to be here, buddy. Without further ado, let's get some stuff going. So I'm just going to move some stuff out of the way. Now, if you didn't know, the way the Z-axis on V2 works means that you can take the whole Z-axis off without having to uncouple it from the Y-axis anymore. And you don't even have to take anything else. It's really easy to take off. It's just 5 bolts. Sorry, it's not 5 bolts, 8 bolts. Why did I say 5 bolts? And yes, I'm committing sacrilege here by using a Torx screwdriver on an Allen bolt. All right, 13 viewers. That's more than I've had in a long time. All right, make yourselves known, say hi. The more you say hi, the more I can interact with you. The more I can interact with you, the better the stream becomes. If this is your first time here, say so. And we can all mock you. No, we're not going to mock you. Not much, at least. All right. So I'm just going to take all the wires off the top pieces so that I don't have to worry about them when the Z-axis column comes off. Is this the right one? How do you tell it's the right one? My Voron is always issues. Keep thinking to move to the X1C. I wouldn't go to the X1C. I personally had the same issues with my Trident before I fixed my Trident. By the way, my Trident was out of commission for nearly 2 years, and I only got it working recently again. And the issue I had was bed leveling. Every time I leveled the bed, I used a clicky probe, I used a normal probe, I used Pinder. I even went back to Pinder just to try and see if that would help. None of them worked. It turns out it was a single line of G-code, which was dropping the bed offset just before the start of the print. So I could have saved myself loads of headache and just realized that 2 years ago. But I didn't. So yeah, it's been out of commission for 2 years. Right, I just need to reach over here. I gotta be careful of Brisket because he's still a puppy, and I gotta make sure that little bits like this get thrown away, and make sure that he's nowhere near cables because he destroyed one of my motors the other day by eating the cable. I have a Prusa for those just printed times. Yeah, Prusa's a good brand for that kind of thing. I'm personally don't mind Bamboo Labs machines. I have 2 of them, obviously. Never had an issue with them, other than belt tension issues, but that's always going to be a thing. But the spicy motor cables are tasty. Yeah, but he has loads of other more tasty things to chew on other than my motor cables. Luckily it was on my my Milo V2 and not my Milo V2. And that one I'm not actually going to be using for a while, so it's alright. It was the Y motor, which is the more expensive motor as well, because it's the bigger one. But yeah. You win some, you lose some. Unfortunately, puppies are puppies. Fortunately, puppies are puppies as well. For the sake of repairability. Chinese caving is often fabricated with peanut oil during manufacturing. Smells good to pets and rodents. Is that true, or are you just trying to troll me? I feel like that could be... That could be one of those things that goes either way, really. My first live stream, Trevor Demi. How you doing, bud? Hope you're well. Hope everyone's having a fantastic time. Right, so that's 3 bolts. I'll bring you guys in close for this one. I want to show you something. So the way the bolt layout works on this. So here's the rear column. This is how the rear column attaches to the bottom of the Y-axis. Sorry. So the middle 2 bolts are just your standard M8 ones that go into extrusion nuts. What are they called? T-nuts. That's the one. T-nuts. The ones on the end are much longer bolts, and they actually screw all the way through to the extrusion underneath it. So the idea is that you loosen these 4 bolts off, you lift the whole column up, and then if you wanted to tram the nod on it, you would just put, if it was nodding forwards, you'd put a shim on this side. If it was nodding backwards, you put a shim on that side. So that's how we go about doing the Z-axis nod on V1.5. What's the title of Milo? What's with the title? Milo V2. Yeah, this is V2. So V1.5 we released that last year. And then at Smurf we announced V2. So this is V2. We're still getting everything ready for production, but we have announced it, so I don't mind showing it off and all the extra bits for it. But yeah, V1.6 is going to have a load of the features from V2, but it's still going to use the majority of V1.5 parts. So if you're worried about not having just bought a V1.5 kit, don't, because you can upgrade it. The only things you won't have is you won't have the increased build volume, and a couple of smaller things. I've been buying stuff for V1.5 build. That's absolutely fine. Like I said, we're doing a V1.6. V1.6 wasn't always on the plans. Right. So, for those of you who don't know, we have been supporting V1 from V1.3 publicly all the way to the V1.5. V1 has had a very good life, right? It's been around for nearly 3 years. It's just that it only got popular last year. So there's some issues with that old design. For one, it was a design that was carried through for like 4 years of design time. So there's lots of little inaccuracies where we've imported step files from other programs and put them into Fusion. There's been some rounding errors on certain things. So we've had all those kind of small issues over the years. V2 is designed from the ground up, right? We wanted to get rid of all the issues that we had on the design side of V1.5. So we thought going from the ground up would be a good way to do that. When we went to Smurf, we realized that people were a bit miffed, and rightly so, that the machine that they bought only a year ago has now been updated. So what we decided at Smurf was that we were going to start designing. We were going to take as much as we could from V2 and put it in V1.6, so that you guys have at least got a full extra upgrade where you get a load of the quality of life stuff and the extra bits and pieces, but you don't have to go to V2 directly. I've been thinking about replacing my table extrusions with 25mm thick plate. Yeah, if you can afford it, it's not a bad thing to do. The more mass you can get on Milo, the better. Speaking of the table, we are going to be replacing the table. V2 and V1.6 aren't going to have that extrusion table anymore. We've decided it's going to be a better and safer alternative to move the electronics off board. So if anyone's ever used a CR10 or something like that, where the box is separate, the electronics are separate to the actual machine, that's what we're going to go for. Is the 2.0 frame the same as the 1.5? No, the V2's frame isn't, but V1.6's frame is. So V1.6, so far we've managed to salvage all the motors, all the lead screws, all the rails, all the extrusions. The plates are being replaced, but the plates that they're being replaced by should be machinable on a V1.5, right? And what we're the bearings, we're going to try reuse as many as we can, but they're going to have, we're moving to thrust bearings for a lot of the axes. End stops we haven't chosen yet. We're using inductive end stops on on V2, and we might do the same on V1.6, but we're not too sure. We're definitely going to use a normal micro switch for the Y-axis. When we were at Smurf, we had a couple of issues with the Y-axis end stop, mostly because we're using it in a weird way. Whereas I'll use this as an example. Where is it? So this is the probe that you generally find on a 3D printer. It's an inductive probe. You normally use this for your Z offset on a 3D printer. We're using it as an end stop. Now, if you have something that's coming down at an angle straight towards the top of the end stop itself, that's fine, that works brilliantly. But we're using it where the piece that's detecting is coming across it from the side. And at slow speeds, it's fine to do that. But at higher speeds, which we found when we were homing it at Smurf, it was causing some issues. So either, if you're going to go with this, either go slower when you're homing, or trade it in for a micro switch, because the micro switch will always hit. It will always hit. And you can also adjust the position of this relative to the table. So on V1.5, the table homes towards the operator, so this direction towards me. The table now homes towards the Z column. And depending on how brave you are, you can either home really, really close to the Z column, or you want to give it a couple more millimeters of space so that you're not accidentally crashing into the column every single time. The reason we home towards the column now is just so that we have a space to fit the way covers, because you can't fit anything underneath the way covers. Expected later this year. When will V2 become public? It depends. I'm currently pretty happy with the CAD. I need to change some stuff with how the ball screw nut blocks work. But that should be a simple enough change. I just need to actually get my ass in gear and do it. Also, this is stuck on here. I need something. So the CAD should be ready to go in a few weeks' time. To be honest, I could probably release it now and I'd be happy with it in terms of it actually functioning. But I'm just not happy with certain things. Like, we need to add screws in the CAD, count them all up. Need to create a whole BOM, stuff like that. It's more the electronics we're waiting on now. Everything you see behind me to my right, your left. This is all still in testing. We're pretty happy with where it is currently, but we still need to actually do the proper testing. So, long story short, like Thomas said, later this year. Every modification I planned on doing will be implemented in V2. What modifications did you plan on doing? And I can tell you whether or not they're being implemented. I got one more screw. I should really prop this up with something. Alright, I have a box full of isopropyl alcohol. Will that fit? No, it won't. Will it fit if I take the vise off? Maybe. No wonder my questions weren't answered on Discord. Every modification is... No wonder my questions weren't answered on Discord. What questions were you asking? Different table. DFU screws. What do you mean by DFU screws? All right, I'm just putting something underneath the Z-axis so that it can catch it. And I've got probably not the best thing to use, but fuck it, I'm using it anyway. I've got a box full of isopropyl alcohol that I use for resin printing as my dirty wash. Double ball screws. They aren't double ball screws. The thing is with ball screws is, I explained this on last stream, is I don't actually think you should have them on Milo. We have them because the community asked for them. Most people on the design team will not be using them. There you go. And we also don't recommend them. Why? So, it has to do with a lot of different aspects of CNC machining, and with Milo specifically, right? A lot of people go, oh, backlash is better on ball screw. And you're right, backlash is better when you don't have something that helps with backlash anyway. Whereas the lead screws that we use on Milo have an anti-backlash nut on them. We've designed them to do that already. And the anti-backlash system works pretty good. So you've eliminated backlash, right? So we don't need to worry about backlash anymore. Now, okay, you think backlash isn't the only reason you want to use a ball screw. Fair, that's true. But when you're talking about a machine that's as small as Milo, right, you're not taking deep cuts. You're not taking deep cuts. That's just the whole thing, right? You're not taking deep cuts. You're doing something called HSM, high-speed machining. And the thing with high-speed machining is you're taking a machine that has less rigidity to begin with, right? Milo is not a big cast iron frame. It's made of extrusions and aluminium. It's not going to have it's not going to take deep cuts. It's going to be really light, but really quick, right? And you can match the material removal rate of a deeper machine, of a deeper cut, by just running the feed rate much faster, right? So instead of going 1,000 millimeters per minute at a depth of 5 millimeters, you're going 2,000 millimeters per minute at a cutting depth of 2.5 millimeters, which still gives you the same amount of material removed in a certain period of time. Whereas, so if you're using ball screws, and the typical ball screws that will fit in Milo are 0802, which means that they have a 2 millimeter pitch, which means for every rotation, they move 2 millimeters, right? The TR8 lead screws that we used on V1.5 and we're still using, you can choose between which ones you want, even per axis. The reason we say those are better is because those have an 8 millimeter pitch. For every rotation of the stepper motor, you get 8 millimeters of travel. So, which means that you can effectively run it at the same RPM that the motors are running. If the RPM of the motor stays the same, say it's 2,000 millimeters, 2,000 RPM, you're going to travel 4 times quicker with the lead screws than you are with the ball screws. Regular ball screws wear out. Yep, they do. Double nut ball screws wear out as well. They are more precise. They are more precise. You're not wrong, but Milo is not an industrial machine. You're not going to see that precision because, for one, your Z-axis isn't as rigid. The resolution that a TR8 lead screw gets to with 1.8 degree steppers is more than the hobbyist needs. It's a lot more than the hobbyist needs. So you're just wasting effort at that point. Do you need more than 0.01 millimeters of accuracy? Is the spindle going to deflect more than 0.01 millimeters every time you make a cut? Yes. So there's no real point in having it be more accurate or have more resolution if you can't use that resolution to begin with. Right. I have a bigger M5 Allen key that's going to make this bit a lot easier, but I can't remember where I put it. Lucy, there we go. Yes, I feel like you need higher than 0.4 of accuracy. DIY product isn't the best tool for the job. It depends, right? You gotta look at Milo for what it is. Milo is not a production machine. It's a hobby machine for people in the 3D printing world, right? And the 3D printing world often gets away with 1/10 of a millimeter of accuracy in 3D prints, right? That's more than enough. We're going 10 times more accurate than that. And the average user doesn't need more than that. They just don't. If you're not the average user, that's fine. Go ball screws. There's nothing stopping you. That's why we have the option. If you want it, you can have it. But you're going to have a much slower machine. And personally, if I'm using a machine that means I have to stand around for 8 hours just to get a single job done, I'm not going to do that job. Whereas if I have a slightly less accurate part, but I can run it in 4 hours, I'd rather do that. Come on. Right. Don't mill on planes. No! If I could get a mill on plane... Actually, no. If I could get a mill on a plane, I would. I don't think TSA would be too happy with me. Or whatever the British... I don't actually know what the British equivalent to TSA is. Most of the spindle class startup spindle collet end mills have higher... Yeah, then. I need to make these test parts for positive parts. DIY project. I feel like you need a higher than of accuracy. No. Oh, I'm all caught up. Hashtag don't mill on a plane. I'm so confused. Why want to participate in this Mile High Rep Rat Festival? Oh, that would be so cool though. That would be so cool though. What is up? Why can't I get you up? I should not have said that. Okay, I'm gonna have to investigate a little further. So there are 2 bolts hidden behind here which help hold the spindle, the Z column a little firmer. There are access holes for them, but they're hard to get with a normal sized Allen key. Luckily you can just take the whole Y-axis motor assembly off. It's only 2 bolts and you can just pull the rest of it. Plus only 4 bolts and you can pull the rest of it off. Then it's easy enough to put back on. Imagine a Rep Rap festival that was on a plane flying from Washington to Florida or something. No, you can't do that. You gotta do a long haul flight. You gotta come to the UK, because then you can start the Rep Rap festival in the airport, do the whole Rep Rap festival, and get really high on ABS fumes in the plane, and then when you get to the UK, right? Because the police here are more lax about getting high than in some places in the States. You can, you know, have a joyous time. This is so hard to do whilst trying to keep things on camera. I gotta give it to Nero. He's actually pretty good at this stuff. Brisket, don't eat my vacuum. Just called NetJets. You two can have a timeshare airplane if the fuel's that oh, fair. Oh, I wish my electric screwdriver wasn't out of charge. He says when the two states used in the example are very drug friendly. Fair enough. But would they let you smoke on the plane? That's the question. And also, you'd be in England, so you can, you know, come and say hi to me, because I can't afford to, definitely can't afford nowadays to go flying about. I don't want to be left out, man. I don't want to be left alone. What's this? What's this? Here you go. Look at this chunky boy. Cruise. Rep Rap cruise. I feel like they do D&D cruises, so I feel like a Rep Rap cruise wouldn't be too far from reality. Where did I put my Allen key? Oh, you know what I do have actually? That might make this a little bit easier. Ah, fuck. Brilliant, found it. Go on this huge rant about how I couldn't find this thing, and then I find it after I've done all the bits that require it. How about this? How about we host the cruise, but we have the 3D. Everyone has to sign up to 3D print a part of the hull, right? And then we can call it the SS Benchy, and then sail it into a volcanic mass of some kind to say goodbye to the Benchy. Hashtag RIP Benchy. Right. So this bit's kind of interesting, so I might as well show it to you. So there is a monobody and there's a split version of this piece. It's quite a big chunky piece. So yeah, you can choose whether or not you want the split body or you want the full monobody one. This is how the extrusions are laid out in Milo. So at the very back, there's an extrusion going up, across, down, and then there's another one underneath here. I feel like I'm going to get rid of these two bolt holes just because they're kind of out of the way and behind the motor mount. You'd have to take the motor mount off. But this is what gives you the rigidity and the ability to tram the nod in a lot easier. So there are two more of these parts. This is what I was trying to get at earlier and couldn't. There are access holes from the outside, but unless you have a chunky Allen key like this, where it's quite long, they're harder to get at. But it's easy enough to take the Y-axis off when you're not streaming, obviously. It's a lot harder to do when you're streaming. Can't have no model benchy, sorry. We'll call it the Titanic 2 and laugh in the face of those schmucks who hit the ice cube. Oh yes. In fact, we'll go find the ice cube. We'll go find the same ice cube, that bastard who took the first one down, and we'll get some revenge, and we'll make some mojitos with crushed ice from that ice cube. Oh, there we go. And we'll laugh in the face of fate. All right, let's get the highly flammable liquid out of the way. Oh my God, I always forget how fat you are, Milo. Revenge for Rose! Revenge for Rose! Sorry, Brisket, did I scare you? Oh, where'd that go? There it is. Should really get some parts trays. Where's Steve when you need him? Where's Steve when you need him? Steve would have parts trays ready like that. I'm gonna take the rest of this, put it on the floor for now, and put this over on the chair so that it's out of the way, and I can concentrate on the bit that I actually need to concentrate on. Summon Steve! Steve, where art thou? Oh, that's a crunch. Don't like it when things crunch when they're not supposed to. Especially humans. Humans shouldn't crunch. Ugh, Brisket, I'm going to trust you. There's a lot of cables down there. There's a lot of cables down there. I don't want you eating them. In fact, how's about give you one of these and bribe you? There you go. Perfect. And then I can bring this back up. Lift with your back. Always remember to lift with your back. The safest way to do it. You need to stay Steve time. Stay 3 times into Voron V2.4 to summon him. I don't have a V2.4. I've only got a trident, and it's the lowly trident. It's the 250 trident. I've never had a. Actually, no, that's not true. I had a CR10, which was 300mm build volume. That was my first ever printer. Right, you can chew the box. I'm not annoyed if you chew the box. Just don't chew any cables. So you guys can see, this whole ball screw needs to be pushed in like that. So I'm just spinning it a little bit. It's a lot. This is what I mean by the ball screws have a really low pitch. I have to spin a whole lot more to get the same distance. V2.4 would not be a summoning machine as he is the father of Trident. There we go. I can do the Trident. I can do the Trident. I can shout. I need a summoning shout, a summoning chant for Steve. Use it to stabilize it. Yep. Low pitch is for torque. Yes, it is for torque. But if you're running at the high end of the RPM of the motors anyway, you're losing torque anyway. So it doesn't really matter. So on this V2, the one with the ball screws on it, the max I've managed to get out of the feed rate is 2,400mm a minute. And that's millimeters a minute, not millimeters a second, like they do in 3D printing. So with 2,400mm a minute, I could stop each axis with one finger. So yeah, they do produce more torque at a certain RPM, at the same RPM versus a pitch that's higher. But when you're talking about feed rates, where you need the feed rate, you need it to be high, that's not going to work. And servos are pricey, And believe it or not, servos have less holding torque than stepper motors. Right? And people always forget that. For the same amount of power consumption, a lot of the time, servos have less torque than stepper motors. Can anyone guess why we use servo motors instead of stepper motors? Right? And actually be serious about it. Because I see this misconception all the time. Servos are not inherently better than stepper motors when it comes to torque. Can anyone guess why you would use servo in CNC specifically over a stepper motor? Right? I'll give you guys a few seconds to chat amongst yourselves and figure that out whilst I loosen these up. They know their position. Okay, so why is a servo better than a closed loop stepper? Because a closed loop stepper knows where it is. Closed loop stepper knows exactly where it is all the time. Because they have more torque? Not necessarily. Again, stepper motors have more holding torque, and under the right conditions, they actually have more dynamic torque as well. If you're looking at the same power consumption, so say, and I know you don't get stepper motors this small, say a 5-watt stepper versus a 5-watt servo, and I know you don't get them that small, but just so that there's an arbitrary number that you guys can work with. That and also can fault if it can't be correct. But you get that with closed loop steppers. Closed loop steppers do have faults as well, do have fault detection. Also, this step recovery has always been a weird one. I don't understand why people want it. Step recovery often means that something's gone wrong first before, and if something's gone wrong in a CNC or on a 3D print, then the part at the end isn't going to look the way you want it to anyway, so you might as well just stop. I know that the torque curve is very different. Yes, the torque curve is very different. That is one reason, right? Torque curve is very, very different on a stepper versus a servo. The torque drops off a lot faster on a stepper motor. That's one of the reasons. No one's got it so far, and it has to do with the way stepper motors work, specifically in rotation, right? Specifically to do with the rotation. So there's your hint. And before anyone says it, I'm not saying servos are better or worse than steppers. I'm saying that people misunderstand why they're used in what situation. It's often a misunderstanding. People look at spec sheets and they've been told that ball screws and servos are better, and they don't understand why they're better, or how they're better, or in what situations they're better. They're not always better. I have a real milling machine that I'm considering upgrading to a BLDC to servos, from a BLDC to servos. So a BLDC, depending on how the BLDC works, because some of them work a little bit differently than the term BLDC can actually cover quite a lot of different motor types. But a BLDC has the same advantage as a servo does. Are you already tinkering with your new EM mill? EM mill? EM mill? What does PM mill mean? Okay, since no one has got it yet, it has to do with cogging, right? Servo motors have a lot better ability to counteract cogging. So if you don't know what cogging is, it's the tendency for a stepper motor or a motor to snap to fixed positions, right? Generally on a stepper, because you've got two coils a lot of the time, two coil pairs. Is it two coil pairs? I'm pretty sure. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's two coil pairs. Every 1.8 degrees, it cogs, right? It gets stuck. So on a servo motor, that's less effective, less likely, right? So every time you do any kind of motion with a stepper motor, right, the stepper motor will cog to the next position. Where you can help it out with micro-stepping, but micro-stepping doesn't work, again, like people think it does. It's not as effective as people think. So micro-stepping does help with that regard, but not in the way that you would think it does. Whereas a servo motor, yes, they do still experience cogging, but the control you get around how it does that cogging is a lot smoother. Pound for pound. Servos are quieter, smoother, and stronger. They're not necessarily stronger. They're not necessarily stronger. They're smoother. They're definitely smoother. They're quieter, definitely. But you're running a CNC machine, so why does quietness matter to you? Like it's the whole thing about people like milling with water-cooled spindles that I don't get. I don't mind. Water-cooled spindles have their place. Water-cooled spindles are great. They can cut at a lower RPM without overheating. They keep the spindle a lot cooler, a lot more consistent temperature than the air cooling does. But you're still running a spindle, you're still chowing into aluminium or steel or wood, and it's still going to be loud. So why do people keep focusing on how much quieter they are? Never made any sense to me. But anyways, okay. So I need to do some heat sets. So let's get an iron heating up. And let's catch up with some. I've got a Maso on a few Bridgeports. Pretty sick control for a decent price. Yeah, the controller itself is a decent price. The touchscreen is ridiculously priced. Like, it's worth it for an industrial machine. If you're going with a big Bridgeport, totally worth it. Absolutely worth it. But it's like $3.5 grand or $3 grand or something like that. Like, people put Maso controllers on Milo. Again, why? Like, if that's the way you want to do it, go ahead. Your money. It's cool. It's awesome. I respect it. But god damn, is it expensive. I won't need a snorkel to keep my spindle from getting coolant in the top and making my VFD mad. MQL, minimum quantity lubrication. Use something that's kerosene based, like WD-40, or just straight kerosene. It'll evaporate before it does anything, and as far as I'm aware, kerosene is non-conductive. I might be wrong there. Do your own homework with that. Servos required. That's a nice project. I have my Milo on Linux CNC, and I'm very happy with that solution. Yeah, Linux CNC is good. Linux CNC is a great software. It's a software. It's effectively an OS, as far as I know, because it runs at the same frequency as the processor does. I'm just going to stop my camera from moving. Give me a second. There we go. It runs the same frequency as your processor does. The issue I have with it is it's not very user-friendly for the install and setup process. That's the only issue I have with it. When it comes to RepRap firmware, and this is the big reason why we chose RepRap firmware is a lot nicer to the total noob. And if you're a total noob, you're most likely going to be running Milo. And if you're not a total noob, you'll probably be running a bigger machine anyway. I'm just going to steal the heat inserts from one and put them in the other. In your experience, Bill, what is limiting about this? I have my Milo on Linux CNC and I'm very happy with the solution. It's true, however, the interface is somewhat limiting. The interface? Oh, with the Maso. Total noob, that would be me. That was me when I started. Alright? You guys gotta remember that 4 years ago when I started this, I've never even used CAD before. I was in university studying outdoor leadership as a degree, right? Which is the completely wrong degree for anything to do with mechanical design. But the community was so nice and the knowledge was out there and it was kind of easy to hop on the bandwagon. I'm not going to say I'm the best engineer in the world. I'm not even going to say I'm an engineer, but I was a total noob back then. Perfect. So I'm going to bring you guys in close for this. I'm going to try and change camera. You know, the webcam. So this is kind of how we've set up the bearings. The old bearing system was just a whole load of 608 bearings. The 608 bearings solution was not the greatest solution, but it was at the time before thrust bearings became a little bit cheaper, or we had cheaper options for them. These were pretty much the only option for a while, but we've since moved on from that. So this bearing here is what limits the radial movement of the lead screw or ball screw, depending on how you want it. By the way, if you didn't watch last stream, I spoke about how the ball screws and the lead screws are interchangeable. You can choose which ones you use on what, and all the external components, so all the bearing blocks and things like that, stay the same between the two. They stay exactly the same, they don't change. So this piece here will, for example, work with the 8mm ball screws as well as the 8mm lead screws. So this constrains it radially, and that goes inside, just like that. And then what we do is we put a little cap on it so that's not moving about. Right. So we're just going to tighten these down. And that sits on the outside flange of the Why are these not tightening? Why aren't these tightening? Something's wrong here. There we go. I think the inserts are a little bit off. Howdy, Steve! We summoned him! We summoned him! The summoning worked! Steve is here! Steve is here! We have summoned the Steve builds! Welcome, dude! I was told that if I screamed into my my Voron Trident enough, that you would appear. I didn't do it, but, you know, I just had to say that, and then you did it. You came. Why aren't these tightening down? I think this has shrunk a little bit. By the way, I love Polymaker filament. They've been really good. But this blue stuff, this blue sparkly, I forget what the name of it is, sucks. It really sucks. It's fine mechanically, but it shrinks and warps to high heaven. I've had so many issues with it. Alright, let's try this one at a time instead of doing all 4 at once. See if that helps things. Putting electronics together in my Milo V1.5 kit, total CNC newbie, excited to learn first live stream, looking forward to learning more and to future financial expenditures. Yeah. So, you know the cost of the machine, you know what Milo costs, wait until you get into fixturing, and then you'll realize what the real cost was. I think I know what's wrong. I think I know what's wrong. I think I know what's wrong. So, so when I modified it, I made, here's the old part. I made this bridge thicker because this is the bit that cracked, this kind of flange. I made this thicker so it wouldn't crack as easily. And I totally forgot that I did that and used the old part here to tighten it down. If you actually see that, this little flange here is taller than the one on this side. So I was using that one, and this is the one I was meant to be using. I know why it wasn't fitting now. Right. You should run a cauliflower and get a shrink factor to put in your slicer. Yeah, I probably should. Alright, there we go. That's working now. The thing is, cauliflower is a paid model, and currently I'm unemployed, so spending money on things is a bit... on stuff like that is a bit hard to justify nowadays. And already went off on the first trip to S&W on a friend's advice. Yeah, the S&W stuff is good. The V2 plate, I'll get it out. The V2 plate should be a bit friendlier to you guys for that. I kind of fucked up with... Oh, sorry, Brisket. Sorry, buddy. Sorry. Nothing fell on you. Don't worry. Just something fell on the floor. I kind of fucked up with it because M5 is kind of the biggest screw that we use in the 3D printing world. And when I started Milo, I thought, okay, we'll just stick with M5. But M6 is the standard for CNC stuff, apparently, which I only learned later on down the line. So the plate, this is the V2 plate, if for those of you who don't know. The plate is all M6 now. And I think, as far as I remember, it's to the same spacing as the S&W plates, so it should be fine. You should actually be able to use the S&W stuff on it now. If you search around S&W's site, you'll find that they published drawings for the mod vice, which you can mill on the Milo. Yes, you can. S&W also make a custom plate and some custom STLs for V1.5. And I I was so excited when it happened because it was still when we were fairly new, and NYCNC and SMW are kind of like gods of machinist YouTube, of like CNC YouTube. And when I saw that they were making plates, they didn't approach us about it or anything, but they were making plates. I went like full on fangirl. Cool. So let's get back to this. So that is now secure in place. That bearing can only spin radially now. So that's the screw constrained in the radial directions. Now we want to contain this in the up and down direction, the, what's it called? The axial direction, right? So in the axial directions, we don't use normal bearings because they don't take axial loads very well. We use these bad boys. So you take 3 of these parts, try and get it up nice and close for you. So that is a thrust bearing. I think it's an F18 thrust bearing, something like that. I forget the names for this stuff. And we're going to put 1 at the top. Now, these do move about from side to side. That's why we have the bearing on the inside to constrain it radially. Right? So this will constrain it along the axial directions. Right? So that's the kind of moving up and down the screw. Because if you don't constrain it in that direction, then you're not going to get accurate parts. We're just going to put the top one on first for now. And then, whoop, don't fall over. Don't be drunk just yet. Over that cam. And then that's just going to slide back on the top. I already have a locking nut that's on the screw, so I'm just going to tighten that down when I can. Perfect. That all fits on now. Now I cut this screw by hand, so it is a little bit longer, so there is a little bit of stick out on the screw. That's fine. I don't need the full Z-axis height anyway. Ray's here. Anyone's guessing, Bleach in the chat is Ray. I already went off the... I think someone on the server machined their own SMW plate. Yeah, probably. Just got a plate from SMW. Very nice. They are very nice plates. They are very nice plates. They're too expensive to get in the UK and the EU. They're too expensive. Did you get a chance to look into that metal company? Oh, that's for Steve. What's this metal company? I want to know what this metal company is. I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. Cool. So I'm going to tighten the bolt. I'm going to put the bolts back on the lower Z-axis piece now. I'm going to replace the electronics table on my Milo to stiffen it up. Yeah. Best thing you could probably do to stiffen it up is probably like still do your replacement with a big metal piece. That's fine. That's going to do nothing but help. But best thing I would recommend to do is actually to get some struts and attach the not flanges. Bright's done a couple of mods on the Discord where he's got 2 plates that kind of go sideways along the Z-axis and stiffen up in a torsional direction. And it's a good idea. It does help. It will help. Because currently, one of the biggest drawbacks is that kind of torsional rigidity. So the twisting of the column as you apply pressure to one side or as you apply a force to one side of it. They do look like wings. I get what Ray's saying. They do look like wings. I plan to run bolts up through the plate into the Z column. Oh, are you running the Z column, that plate on the back of the Z column? I thought you were putting it underneath the table, as where the table would be. I believe you mentioned changes to the electronics bay for V1.6 first stream. Yes, I did. So we're getting rid of that table. You can still use that table. Like nothing. If you've got a V1.5 and you want to still use that table, use it. Go ahead. The issue is we had loads of people who were getting chips on the inside of their electronics bay. We had a load of people who were getting who couldn't fit what they needed to, and it's a very, very small box. It's quite dinky in there, and because we've expanded the electronics out quite a bit, hence all this, and Sila's so much bigger and all that kind of thing, there's very little space in that box. So what we're going to recommend is that whoever's making kit, whether it be LDO, FISEC, whether it be a self-source build, we're just going to recommend that you buy one of those NEMA electronics boxes, or we might include files to print our own. Depends. Yeah, something like that. And you run that external to the machine, so like 500 mils, or like half a meter away from the machine or something like that. And that's going to have the e-stop. It's going to have all the electronics inside of it, the VFD, all that kind of stuff. I know it's a bit of a pain to those of you who are used to the 3D printing world, where the electronics is part of the main structure, but it's safer this way. You can get more electronics in it. It's less expensive. And it also means that there's a better possibility that the kits that come from LDO, for example, will come with the wire lengths needed to build inside CASA. Instead of you having to go about and lengthen all the wires yourselves, which can be a pain. It is definitely a pain. Right. Oh, missed a step. There we go. Bring you back in nice and close. So we've constrained it in one direction now, and we're going to do the same thing again. So it goes thrust bearing, and then other part of thrust bearing, and then a locking nut just to secure it all at the bottom. Now that presses all the way in. Yes, this bit's sticking out. Like I said earlier, my screw's not cut to the right length. That's just an issue that I'm going to have to deal with. There's a little access port here, and I'm just going to line up the screw. Where's my screwdriver gone? Where's my screwdriver gone? There it is. There we go. All right, you do want to chuck these down quite hard. As hard as you can manage to, because they're a bit of a pain otherwise. The V1.5 locking collars, if you've got the LDO kit, they come with nice locking collars. The ones that we put in the bomb originally have a set screw, and that set screw pushes up against the screw itself. Now, the issue with that is the set screw can actually go into the grooves on the screw itself and pull it out of alignment. That's why so many people had issues when they were self-sourcing. We've since then moved over to the brass style ones that have the same thread as the screw. And those are a lot better. But the ones you get in the LDO kits are also fine. You just need to make sure that they're clamped down properly. There we go. I'm just going to give it a bit of a yank, make sure that I can't feel any backlash. I can't see the axis moving. Right, and that is that repaired. Let's catch up. It sounds like a win just for having the e-stop outside the makeshift enclosure. I'm hoping to have enough experience to justify the CASA enclosure in a few months, which sounds like a proper solution. Yeah, the thing is, if we put the electronics box on the outside, all the cables are already long enough to run to CASA, and you can just take the e-stop from that box, throw the box away, or you reuse it somewhere else, most probably, and take the e-stop, take the board, take everything, and just put it inside CASA. Because CASA is the best solution. If you live in a flat like I do, CASA is the only solution, because you trust me when I say you don't want chips all over your stuff. I was in university when the first Milo came out, the first public one, and it was, and I used it in the bike shed once to make a part that was that big, and I got in so much trouble from my university. Just chips everywhere on people's bikes and things. You'll have a nice large leak at each of the corners. Right, so I'm gonna move this off the table. Oh no, my camera! I'm like the clumsiest man alive right now. I have a CASA and I get chips nearly everywhere still. Yes, yeah. There's no such thing as a clean workshop when you have a CNC machine. Or a clean home. I have to be a little bit more careful nowadays because I've got brisket down there. And I don't want him eating chips and things. But he's pretty well behaved with stuff like that so far. I mean, I've only had him for a week, so he could be an utter madman and like the taste of silvery chips. He's fast asleep by the door right now. Hey, you'll tuck it out, big man. Enclosures localize the chips. Yeah. They still get out. They're like children. No matter how long you lock them in a dark cupboard, they still get out. Wait, did I really just say that? No. It sounds like a great price. Quick check here came to 200 euros. I'm guessing that's the price for a CASA enclosure. Cool. So I'm going to do Z-axis first because it's the hardest one to get on. So, easiest way to do this is to either get the two corner connector pieces on first to stop the nod, or to get the back two corner connectors on the sides in first. If you get the ones at the front in first, you can actually bend those screws. They will bend under the weight of Milo, so just make sure that you're getting the back ones in first so that the weight is resting on the front extrusion. Just getting all my cables and stuff out of the way first. I'm going to go with the two back corner connectors first. It's getting in the way. Something's getting in the way. Ah, that's it. The T-nut that the back corner connectors connect into was in the way, had fallen out and was in the way. There we go. My lathe is still waiting for the workbench to be set up, which is waiting for me to clean. Oh, mate, that's the issue. You're never going to use that lathe. Lathe's never going to be used now. Just accept it. You aren't going to clean that workshop up. No one cleans their workshop. This is your life now. It's just going to be staring at you forever. Never clean. You just have to occasionally spend time to make it usable again. Yeah, yeah. That's like most of my relationships. What are those holes on the X extrusion? I never talked about this on any video or anything, have I? I've developed a new way to do blind joints on extrusions that are connected together lengthwise rather than ends to, rather than perpendicular. So in parallel, yeah. I've found out a way to connect extrusions in parallel rather than perpendicular to each other. So the bed supports are now more for good looks and to keep chips out of the X-axis ways. They don't support most of the weight anymore. That is all. Why is there blood in there? There's blood in there and I don't know where it's from. The two extrusions that go on the side are now supported by blind joints. And they're so much stronger, so you can actually use that part of the bed structurally to hold parts down now, which you couldn't do on V1.5. Does the direct drive Z mean 1.6 is expected to require a better board like Sylar? Yeah, pretty much. I hate this part. I hate to do this, but the CDY was our only real choice at the time, right? It was the one that wasn't extremely expensive. It was one that was easy-ish to get a hold of. And it had all the features that we needed. It's not a very good board. It's not a very good board. It's just not. And I hate to say that because, you know, it sucks for everyone who got got it with their machine, and I hate to do that to people. But we need something better. We needed something better, and Sylar is that thing. So I would say that Sylar is more of a requirement now than anything else. And I hate saying that. I really do. You could maybe get away with it without it. I haven't tested it, I don't know. Maybe if you use 5160 drivers on the CDY, maybe it'll work. You could, yeah, you probably could get away with it like that, but you'd have to use one of the external 5160s. The external 5160s are fine. You're still limited to below the torque that you need by the CDY itself. Even if you use 5160s on the CDY, I think the CDY traces can only take 2 amps anyway. Can only deliver 2 amps. The Siler is worth the upgrade. I don't have a lot of experience with it, obviously, but it feels great. Yeah, the Siler is more than worth it. You don't have any of the low memory issues. You don't have, you have dedicated ports for everything. So we can hopefully make tutorials for that kind of thing in future. And it's going to be easier for us to do because we don't have to bodge together like the laser pins. All the spindle logic, so the stuff that tells your spindle how quick it's going, stuff like that, is baked in to the very bright in here. It's all baked into the board itself, so you don't have to muck around with the little daughter board that LDO gives you. Here's an issue, by the way, that we are aware of. We are aware that this is an issue. We don't have a fix for it. I think it's the optocouplers or something like that. It's the nerdy thing that I don't know about. Is one of the components on the voltage conversion, which takes the PWM signal that the board can offer and turns it into an analog signal, right? That isn't perfect. They never were perfect. Even on external boards, they will never be perfect, right? They don't always produce exactly 10 volts or exactly 0 volts. We are aware that this is a problem. It means that your spindle, when you try and run your spindle up at full RPM, it means that it will probably only go up to, say it's 24,000, rated for 24,000 RPM, it will probably spin up to like 23,000 RPM. We're aware it does that. In your VFD manual somewhere, there will be a section that says how to configure it, how to configure the range of voltage required to get the max and min RPM for your spindle. So instead of having your max RPM being at 10 volts, it might be at 9.2 volts, right? It happens on every single board that uses that converter. We can't help it. It's just the way that it's built, right? There's no solution to it. Not an easy one, at least. That works really well, but requires a deeper understanding of the spindle and how to use Modbus. Yeah, the Modbus, we are looking at setting up Modbus. 9 has been doing a whole lot of work in the behind the scenes to get Modbus working. And not only to get Modbus working, but to be able to automatically set it up depending on common VFD types. So I think he's effectively using ChatGPT to quickly run through the manual for a lot of the common like Huanyang VFDs and Shailen VFDs and stuff like that. And then he's going, and then that spits out an approximate Modbus setting for it. And then he verifies them to see if they actually work. So yeah, Modbus will be a thing in future. Should be a thing in future. So long as that all goes well. It'll up to 10 volt if you provide it 12 volt like the BTT manual calls for, but if you are planning on powering it with built-in 10 volt of your VFD, you won't reach 10 volts of output. Yeah, that's basically it. Yeah. That is effectively it in a nutshell. To be honest, a couple thousand RPM doesn't make that much of a difference a lot of the time, at least in my experience. So it's something I could fix on mine, but I'm not going to, because it doesn't make that much of a difference. Different VFDs support different Modbus transcripts, as well as different mappings addresses. Yeah, that's why he's going through and making a configurator for it, so that it can be all, that side of it can be done automatically, or at least automatically enough that we can then step in and go and do the rest. Oh, morning, little man. You have a bad dream. Depper Online VFD that has a really weird setup. What's weird about it? Why do you say that? Why do you say it's weird? Right, I seem to be missing a screw somewhere. Oh, but that's fine. It's just for the cable organizer. So there's a little cable organizer down there if you don't know, and it just helps to run all the cables to a single point, which you can then, so you can then zip tie them all together and do all that fun stuff. Settings are not direct. You use some registers which point to other registers which hold the settings. That's the same with a lot of VFDs. That's the same with so many VFDs. VFDs are the worst thing to come out of industrial design. Right. Let's do a little bit of cleanup. There's some excellent interactive Modbus tools to work through the required commands and controls. Required commands and controls. Oh, cool. All right. I'm just going to check backlash just by giving each axis a quick once over. Everything looks good and dandy. And connect the Y-axis motor back together. Awesome. Right, so this should be ready to go inside CASA now. Right. And I don't want to do this with Brisket in the room or not or at least not on that side of the room. So, come Bubs, do your bed over here. Come on Bubs. Oh, I know, fatty. Yeah? Yeah, well, you having a sleep? Yeah? You having a deep sleep there, Bubs? Alright, let's put you back down. In your bed. Oh, and he's out of his bed again. Right, come on, treat, and stay in your bed. Right, electricity's off from the circuit breaker. This is a bit of a hard maneuver to do, so I'm going to try and do it as best I can. And the only camera I have that points in this direction is my worst one, so excuse that. How am I going to carry this? How do I carry it? Awesome. All right, let's move some stuff away from here. So they have a space to rest it on. Right, let's try and do this. Preferably do this with another person. Just taking the screws out of here because otherwise they'll just catch on everything. Ooh. Don't ever follow my manual handling skills. They're atrocious, and I have dropped machines on my head before, so don't do what I do. Do as I say, not as I do. Right. I'm just gonna get a little bit of light in here. Turn this on. Okay. Right. I need the bigger screwdriver for these ones. How long is this cable? Nope, that's not really long enough. I need to get my fourth camera set up, my nice camera, the ZV-10, set up in here so that I can do this kind of thing. I have a long USB cord so you guys can actually see what I'm doing. Is Steve still in chat? Steve's still in chat. I've got something to ask Steve. Well, I've got something that I need to ask RCF, but RCF never seems to reply to anything. So I'm going to ask Steve instead. Right. So that is that installed. And I have my bench wagon. Missing a couple of T-nuts, so I'm going to just do that another time. But that's in there. I can start. I don't know if I want to do wiring tonight because I've got some other stuff that I need to get done first before stream ends, and we've already been going for nearly 2 hours. You need an engine hoist, not another camera. Yes, I need an engine hoist, but I live in a flat. Here's how bad it is. I don't have enough space in this room. This table literally mounts to this wall, right? So that I can fold it away when it's not being used. Right? It's so tiny in here. The wired thing, the engine hoist is heavy too. The weird thing with an engine hoist is it's heavy too. I have one for my machines. What is a flat? A flat is an apartment. A flat's an apartment. It's what we call an apartment here in the UK. Right, so what else did I have on for stuff to do today? I have P1S stuff to do. So let's unplug this bad boy. Gotta take my filter off first. It's unplugged. What mods? I am going to be installing a new hotend, a hotend that is made of hardened steel hotend, and some hardened steel gears, because I want to do some work with abrasives for V1.6. Not because I think abrasives are necessary, but because I think they look cool. Most of the parts that they're going to be on are parts that actually don't need the extra stiffness of glass-filled ABS. And for your viewing pleasure, I will probably do this without a manual, because I like being masochistic, I guess, and pretending I know how things work. Let's do this one. You can see both angles. The machine that has seen a bit of ABS prints. That machine has seen a bit of ABS prints. Yeah, hold on for a second. Risk it, come on. So, Can you guys still hear me? Yes, you can. So when I design a new machine, I like to keep all of the parts that were used to make it. And for the most part, these two boxes were printed on this machine. It's just 15 kilos of ABS. These are all the parts that either needed to be modified slightly or weren't correct, failed during the process of designing V2. I'm going to keep this box around and that box. I'm going to add the V1.6 parts to it. And I'm going to see how heavy the two are by the end of the process. So yeah, this machine has definitely seen a lot of ABS. And the IKEA filters work great, by the way. I'm a huge advocate for not just filtering the inside of your printer, but also filtering the room that your printer is in, right? Because we don't have very much time on this earth, and you don't want to make it any shorter by inhaling VOCs all the time. You could build and assemble an A-frame hoist that just fits in your room. That way you can have a movable lift that isn't attached. Guys, I think you're overdoing it a little bit here. I don't need a hoist. Mine's heavy, but I'm not moving that many machines in and out of CASA. Appreciate it. Are they split level flats? No, my front door leads straight into some stairs. So I go upstairs to get into my flat. And then my neighbor lives below me, and so on and so on. Oh, automated CASA machine changer system. That would be interesting. Yes, yeah. And then you had to automate the changing from parts from one machine to the other. So you have a robot arm that changes the Milos that are in CASA, and then another robot arm which changes the parts from the CASA that you've just taken, the Milo that you've just taken out, and you put it on the CASA that's just gone in. Smart. Very smart. Right, what's this one? This one is hotend with hardened steel. I think we're going to do change the gears first. We are thinking of some kind of tool changer for just Millennium in general. We're thinking more. We're kind of trying to be more forward thinking with a lot of this stuff. I'm going to move that screen so that you guys can actually see my face. There you go. We're trying to be more forward thinking with a lot of the new setups of things. So things like the electronics is going to be the same across Atlas, across Mili, across Milo. They're all going to be the same. Things like tool changers. The physical tool changer might be a little bit different, but we're going to try and keep them all the same, as much as we can at least. Hey Jake, going to dig in silo tomorrow for our channel. Do you have time for Zoom in? Yeah, sure. Sure. I can do that. if you wanted to, really, I'm happy for you to jump on Discord now, and I can chat whilst the stream's going. Also, if you don't know Alan, Alan's from West 3D. Not from West 3D, but you are part of West 3D in States, as far as I know. He does a lot of videos. He was one of the first people to do a video on Milo. And he's a big friend of the project. And I'm still not happy by the fact that you didn't come to Smurf. When you said that you were coming to Smurf, I was so excited and you didn't show up. And for that, I'm finding you, I can't say, finding you 3 pints. Let's say 3 pints for the next time you do come to Smurf. If you don't come to Smurf, we're just going to hunt you down. Okay, I probably should actually look. Is it possible for you to make it to Rocky Mountain Reptile Festival? If someone's willing to sponsor me, yeah, I'd happy to. But that's a sponsorship for a flight, food, and a hotel. But I'd be happy to come out. We need to borrow some Milos from people, because obviously I wouldn't be able to bring my one out. I could probably, I don't know. We'd have to ship one of the V2s out, maybe Atlas. Right. Bamboo Labs gear replacement. These builds, Milo is pretty stock. Yeah. I need to get back to work, lunch here, but I'll ping you later. I'm working on getting Smurf 2025. Perfect. I did say no manuals, but then there was a ribbon cable, and I got scared. I got scared. I don't. The hotend I could change with no manuals. That's fine. It's the gears I'm scared. I'm scared I'm gonna break something. Cabin luggage is pretty restricted nowadays. See, this is the weird thing. Whenever I've flown, I've had 2 bags of 23 kilos. That's what flying in and out of Africa is like. It's always 2 by 23 kilos. That's the standard amount of luggage. And then you go to the UK and to the States, and you're only allowed like 1 bag, and it can be no more than like 15 kilos or 10 bananas or whatever units of measurement you guys use nowadays. I probably won't have an enclosure by then, but I live 40 miles away. I'm confused. What was this in regards to? Or have I missed the message that was in regards to? Probably missed the message, haven't I? Oh, no. Don't lose the screws. I feel like I'm missing one screw. Yeah. Be easier if this door wasn't in the way, and I don't want to Uncle Jesse this. Take that ribbon cable off before I... Nice. You have whatever weight you want. It just costs big dollars because by an airline's logic, it's not safe to bring too much luggage on the plane. You know, that makes sense. You know, you don't want to weigh the plane down, and because the extra weight that gets added, it crashes. You don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But if you pay more, it becomes safer because logic. I was thinking about maybe going to Remurf this year. I wonder if it would be cheaper for you to ship machines or if I built from scratch and drove them there, Jake. Is Ben AO dude? Is that AO dude? It would probably be... I don't actually think it would be that much more expensive, to be honest. I just booked my hotel from going to do the drive this year. Speaking to letting you borrow a Milo V1.5 from Murph since I live in the area. I would love to, and I'd probably be happy to do that, but again, jobless at the moment, so affording trips to the States would have to be a sponsored thing. It would have to be a sponsored thing, because I've got, and I'd have to make sure that there was someone who could look after brisket whilst I was away, and that's going to cost even more money. And then I would end up spending. I always end up spending some amount at like Smurf and that lot. Speaking of brisket, I have no idea where he is. I'm probably just going to go check on him in a second, just to make sure he's okay and he hasn't eaten anything that he shouldn't have. Aha! Success! And I didn't use a manual. Pfft. Who needs manuals? Oop. I'm gonna put those two screws back in because I think those are actually good ones. But if you do want to support the stuff that we do here at Millennium, if you want to make sure that brisket gets fed, if you want to make sure that I have some money so I could potentially do stuff like a trip to Smurf in future, there is a link on the Millennium Discord. I forgot to link it in the description, but it is currently my only form of income. So yeah, if you feel like donating, go ahead. We would really appreciate it. If not, I'm cool with that too. I was more talking about getting a V2 or Milo going with a diamond drag setup to do something like was done at Smurf, assuming Jake could come, that is, meaning sponsorship, etc. Yeah, bug Jason about it. Bug Jason about it, and I can afford to go, then, and he can sponsor me, then yeah, I'd be more than happy to. So go to Jason at LTO and just shout at him. He's good like that. He can take it. He's a man. Okay. Right, I've got one of the extruder gears out. Don't know how to take the other one out now. I feel like this could have been made a little bit easier. Right. Before we get doing anything else, I'm just going to go check on brisket. I knew he was doing something. I could feel it in my bones. He stole my shoe. He stole my shoe. He did the classic puppy thing and stole my shoe. And was eating it. Oh, that makes more sense now. I've only been to the States twice, I think. Yeah. I think I've been to the States twice. Once when I was very, very little, and went to Boston to compete in the head of the Charles Regatta. It's a rowing thing, and we did like the classic like tour of Harvard and all that stuff. No, oh you bastard! All right, I think I got everything that fell. Right, sweet. Okie doke. So, that's all those pieces out, and now I can start. Hey, buddy. Okay? I know you want to play, but we'll play in a bit. You should have read the documentation about not dropping gears. Now listen here. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. Right. So let's get this reinstalled. Yes, mister, can I help you? I feel like there's got to be an easier way to do this. I'm missing something. Alright. Let's take this part out. Get the screw ready. Here's that one. Let's pre-install spring, see if that helps. Right, anyone got any plans for this week? That they any fun things that they've got going on in their lives, whilst I'm struggling to, whilst I just stand here and struggle, just in general, to, I don't know, life. Anyone got any projects that they're currently working on? God damn it. Right. Might be easier if I do it. By the way, there is a Millennium Machines Patreon you could join, link in the Discord. Yes, there is a Millennium Machines Patreon. If you don't like PayPal or a PayPal thing, there is the alternative of Patreon. And if you don't like Patreon, there's the alternative of me. Right. How is this meant to be done? Oh, I'm dumb. I'm dumb. I'm just very dumb. I get it now. I get it now. I think I get it now. All right, there we go. See, easy, easy. Who needs instructions? No one needs instructions. No, don't. Instructions are for losers. Losers with no friends. Yeah, why don't you go ahead and build a whole Milo without instructions? Then you'll be a real man. Why am I so bright today? I swear I turned down the exposure on this thing. Give me a second. Because I'm stood right next to my light when I'm over here, but it exposes for this bit here. Exposure, auto exposure. Oh, that's way too. There you go, that's a bit better. And let's get the stream back up so I can actually see what's going on. And the rat rig filter fan thing kit has arrived. Speaking of project list, there is a lathe waiting for the bench. Waiting. Yeah. And I have a box turtle kit arriving tomorrow. How do you have time for this many kits and things? I'm milling keys for my 6-inch vise to mount on my... Oh, you got a... Oh, PM mill. Is that Precision Matthews? Built a pneumatic can crusher. Oh, what's your Milo cereal? I'm not... Not overly interested in the box turtle, to be honest. It's cool, but I am way more interested in the Vivid, because I agree with what Luke said in Nero's video about it. There are too many projects that require 3D printing, and not enough printers that you can rely on to keep printing those projects. And it's becoming harder and harder to justify making a building a Voron or that kind of thing when you're just trying to get things done. So I'm personally going to go with a Vivid on a new machine. Not necessarily a Voron, but I will hold that off until it's ready. Or at least ready to be talked about. I didn't say I have time. Who has time? No one has time nowadays. I'm retired and still don't have enough time. Yeah. I'm without any income or stuff to do for a job, and I still don't have time. It's okay. I have about another month of savings before I can actually do. I have to panic. And the brisket's joined us again. Hey, buddy. Okay, and now it's time. So, those are the gears done. I can say confidently that the gears are installed. And let's put the Bowden tube back on. This is another thing I'm terrible for. Putting stuff down, forgetting where I've put it. The little Bowden clip that holds the Bowden tube in place is gone walkabout. Oh, you're kidding me. Put the wrong gear in. Put the wrong gear back in. If you can, if comfortable answering, are you looking for regular work or thinking of some kind of self-employment venture? I don't know. I don't know. I would love to make Millennium a full-time thing. You know, stream every day and make some videos and do that. But I don't know if the community would help out enough with that, to be honest. I've asked for a lot from you guys in the past when everything went sour with the scam. I think people don't realize how much it takes to run a project. Like, all the money we got back from the scam has pretty much gone straight back into the prototype for V2. There's a bit of that money left over after we had to pay off like rent for the warehouse and stuff like that. The issue is it's not enough. I don't think it could be enough income right now for me to actually live off of. It's a really nice thing to think about, because you could. There's the logic that if everyone in the Discord gave $1, literally a single dollar, I would be on 3 times as much as I am now monthly. Easily 3 times as much. If half of the Discord gave $1 a month, then I would be on more than I've ever been on, and still have enough money to do development for Milo. If everyone who had a Milo cereal gave me $10 a month, that would be, so 130 something, that would be more than enough for me to live on, but I would then still need to ask LDO and those kinds of people for help with covering costs of development. So the possibility is there, but how much can I trust that people in the community are going to continuously donate that $1 every month? And here's the big thing. Here's the big thing that people don't realize. For a content creator or for a project like this, you're better off donating a single $1 than a lot of money. A single $1 a month will be more effective than sending $12 a year. Sorry, $12 at once, or $250 at once. Because the big thing is more cash flow. When it comes to, it's more about cash flow. It's more about knowing how much I can spend every single month and still survive. And when you get big amounts of money, that's sometimes hard to justify, or sometimes hard to do the planning for, because you don't necessarily know what's up and coming. It's predictability. Yeah, it's predictable. So whenever I give, if there's a project that I really want to follow, I give them a small amount of money, but I give it to them once a month, like $1. That is always going to be more effective than just giving someone a lot more money just all at once. And if we want projects like Milo, if we want projects like Voron to survive, the community does have to start actually doing something about it. Because if you look at, like, I know from my contacts at LDO and Fabrico and stuff like that, projects like Voron have really dropped off this year. Whether that's because cost of living is too high, or sorry, last year. Cost of living is too high, bamboo printers are cheaper, and a lot easier to use for the most part. You don't have to assemble them yourself. Whether that's a whole load of things. If you want them to survive, if you want them to keep going, the community needs to do something about it. I'm not just talking about Milo here, obviously. I did those same kinds of mental gymnastics when I ran the Discord bot at the peak. If just one person from every server that had my bot had donated $1 to my Patreon, I would have made literally 10x. What? Well, 10x what I make at my day job. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, a single dollar is good. Everyone can afford a single dollar. There isn't a single person, unless you are on the brink of poverty, who can't afford to donate a single dollar. Right? And you've got to consider whether or not the joy that you get out of the projects that you do, the printers that you build, the mills that you make, the parts that you make to make other projects, you've got to really ask yourself whether or not you've got $1 worth of entertainment out of those things or more. hopefully I can get the channel, this channel, up to a high enough standard that I can get, I can start taking super chats and things like that, because that would be nice. Super chats really do help. Problem is the number of channels that one can support. Multiplicity works in both directions. Yeah, and that's a fair point. That's a fair point, but it's a point that has no answer to it. No good answer to it, at least. You also kind of have to look at the demographic of people who are doing the printing and doing the CNC stuff. When we went to Smurf, right? Other than the table right next to us, which had loads of people, genuinely had loads of people who were being extra nice to us, and they were all young, right? All the people next to us. But the people who were actually coming to see the printers, and the majority of people behind the stands, were in their 40s, 50s. And a lot of them come from either engineering backgrounds or they're managers in something. 3D printing isn't a cheap hobby. So the demographic surrounding it can most of the time afford to take $20 or £20 or whatever from their day-to-day living and support 20 different projects. That's my opinion, at least. But I also see how valid other people's opinions in that regard are as well. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say you should drop everything and send me money. Not at all. Or send Voron money or that lot. I just do think that the world around 3D printing needs to realize that these projects will disappear if there isn't enough support for them. And I'm not talking about support where LDO pays for parts and development. I'm talking proper support where the people behind the project can actually live off of that support. Okay. Right, I am very, very hungry. We're coming up to 2.5 hours of streaming. I'm probably going to do the rest of this upgrade off screen because I can see a load of people just dropping off now that the Milo content is over. So I hope you guys do have a wonderful rest of your day. I'm sorry it got a little bit intense towards the end. We'll talk about that another time, most likely. I hope that all your projects are going well and that everyone's having a great time. And thanks for coming. And we'll get back to some more Milo stuff either tomorrow or the day after. Right, there's my mask on. You guys, thanks for coming. Bye.